During our Pete Stetna episode, you may have heard our guest talk about his lead boat strategy. That one of the most important parts between the finish line at Leadville and the start line in Steamboat will be immediate replenishment of calories.
Yeah, so critical. Pete said that this is something he learned as a pro tour rider. Having a recovery drink immediately after getting off the bike is paramount to a good performance the next day. And we're not talking once he got back to his hotel or after he got out of his kit. That recovery drink is in his hand right after he crosses the line.
I'm sure Pete would suggest that non-pros do the same thing, whether or not they have a stage or steamboat gravel the next day. In fact, nutritionists will say athletes in training should have a recovery drink ready after all hard sessions.
Yeah, you know, Hadi, I am going to be bringing my very nice blender with me to Leadville because I have a racer. My stepdaughter is going to be racing Steamboat the next day. And so we will be giving her a Floyd's of Leadville shake as soon as she crosses the line in Leadville as we get out of town towards Steamboat. So we are taking this advice. And I will also say the Floyd's Recovery Mix has been a huge part of my training. It comes in chocolate and my favorite vanilla. And it comes in the 1 pound bags with 10 servings or individual packets, which is what we'll be bringing to Leadville. And those are really great if home is not so close. Both are available at floydsofleadville.com, and you can use the code FATTY to get a 15% discount.
And thanks to Floyd's of Leadville for being the title sponsor of this show.
3, 2, 1.
Leadville, the podcast for the 100-mile mountain bike race presented by Floyd's of Leadville. It is season 4, episode 13 of the show that breaks down, builds up, gets you ready, and freaks you out for the highest and hardest one-day mountain bike race in the country. I'm Michael Houghton, Hadi to most.
And I'm Fatty. Our guest and Leadville have something in common: silver. Leadville's mining fortunes were founded on silver, and our guest this episode is celebrating his silver anniversary at the Leadville Trail 100. Jeff Leenhouts is going for his 25th finish at the Leadville Trail 100 this year. And despite a rather unique approach to training and fueling, Jeff has an incredibly consistent record at the race across the sky.
And we'll add this: if you are starting to feel nervous or anxious or a little worked up, freaked out, to use our slogan, then have a listen here to Jeff. He really has an ability to put all of it into perspective and go out and have a good day no matter what. But before that, Fatty, I want to circle back to the whole recovery nutrient thing we talked about at the top of our show. And I'm going to start with a little audio demonstration here. I got that. This. And I got these. What you hear there are my various bottles of vitamins and supplements. Magnesium, vitamin E, D, omega-3s. Over the years, and after much research, I have somewhat come up with an idea of what I might need. But it's vague, lacks precision, and makes for a mishmash of pill bottles all over my kitchen counter. So I was glad when I saw this new thing come up at the feed.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It is the feed formulas, and it is what you need, Hadi. And I need it too, frankly. It's a new way on the feed to identify the vitamins and supplements that you need and then get them in curated daily packets that eliminate the piles of pill bottles, and it is super easy. At thefeed.com, athletes answer a few questions about their current health and your training, and the feed formulas recommends a supplement regimen.
There are formulas that focus on a variety of areas like recovery, gut, injury, pre-workout. The feed got help putting these together from a pro cycling doctor. And speaking of docs, it is a good idea to check with yours before taking anything new. So check out the feed formulas by answering a few questions, see what is suggested, and if you have further questions, check in with your physician.
Yeah, and if you decide to try a formula, go to thefeed.com/Leadville for a 15% discount.
It is rare to find someone who has more Leadville starts than you, Fatty, but for this show, you are a start line second fiddle. Jeff Leenhouts has been in almost every Leadville since 1995.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that he and I have not really crossed paths very often. I don't know why, but I am glad that we were able to meet up over the internet. We interrupted Jeff's day as a realtor in the San Francisco Bay Area to talk about why the Leadville Trail 100 mountain bike race has a permanent spot on his calendar, and why eating a deli sandwich prior to climbing Columbine is part of his permanent race strategy.
All right, Fatty, like we said, we have Jeff Leenhouts with us. Jeff is going for number 25 at the Leadville Trail 100. That's incredible, Jeff. Now, Jeff, I found out about you, the person you can blame for all this, for putting you through this craziness that is the Leadville Trail 100 podcast, is your buddy Mark Prince. So Mark is a friend of mine. That's how I've heard about Jeff. Now, but Jeff, you have certainly, based on your experience at the Leadville Trail 100, earned a spot in that Leadville Walk of Fame with 24 Leadvilles under your belt, or notches in your belt, or what have you. But let's go back a lot farther than that. Tell us how you, A, got into mountain biking, and B, found out about the Leadville Trail 100.
Well, I lived in Marin County, and I bought my first stump jumper back in '89, and saw this article in, was it Mountain Bike Action or Mountain Bike Magazine, and it talked about the Leadville 100 and John Stamstead. And it was just the craziest mountain bike race in the world. And I just had to do it. And I just, I signed up, and me and two buddies, we got in my Toyota 4Runner from sea level in San Francisco and went on a road trip. And we had never done anything really quite like this before. And that's how it all started.
So you came from sea level to 10,200 feet to do this race you had never seen before. I'm interested because I still remember the first time I tried to go up a flight of stairs. The first time when I first arrived in Leadville. Do you remember that feeling of, first getting to Leadville and trying to do normal tasks?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It never experienced anything like it in my life. And, but we got out there a week early. We camped right near the start, about 3 miles in, where you hit the dirt and you start heading towards St. Kevin's. We camped for a whole week. It rained every night, and we got no sleep, but I think we got a little bit acclimated that week before. But we had no idea what we were doing, or getting ourselves into. We just, 25 years ago, we were kids.
So your year one at the Leadville Trail 100 was actually year two of the race. And so tell us about what was your mountain biking experience like going into your year one of the Leadville Trail 100?
Oh dear. I had done a ton of, 2-hour races. Not a ton, but a couple of years under my belt of 2-year races. I was basically a rookie as far as something like this went. Hadn't really done a lot.
And the bike that you were riding was a stump jumper, as you say. And back then, a stump jumper was a hardtail, right?
Hardtail, hard fork, had the BioPace rings. It was kind of like a drum brake. The rear brake was like a drum brake, and it was down by the chainstay. And the wheels back then you could never keep them straight. They rubbed your brakes all the time. They were just, nothing like they are now.
So do you remember, were they arch brakes or were they V brakes? Single finger braking was just a dream back then. It was almost impossible to do. I remember from my first Leadville, which was a couple of years after your first, but yeah, keeping a wheel in true was way more art than science back then. And coming to a complete stop on a rainy day on the sandy, gritty stuff on a wet road or a wet trail in Leadville could be a real problem. We ran out of brake pads fast.
In one race. When I finished, I was medal on medal.
Oh man, those were the bad old days.
So, Jeff, what do you remember about your first Leadville Trail 100? Is it still embedded in your brain, or has there been too many since then to really recall the details of it?
Oh no. I mean, that was a magic trip. I'm getting kind of emotional right now just thinking about it. I mean, it changed my life. I remember the meeting in the little gym, and I remember getting to the start line maybe 15 minutes before the race started, and I was in the front row. I mean, there was, I don't know, 50 people in the race, 60 people in the race. And I'll never forget Ken's speech. It resonated with me tremendously. I can't really remember what was going on in my life at that point, but it just resonated with me incredible. And that race was just what you have to overcome and the pride of finishing. It changed my life. That first race changed my life. I just keep going back to try to get that experience every time.
Yeah, I wonder how many times I've heard people talk about how this race has changed their life. I mean, listeners will remember my own wife's story about her first. And she said almost word for word what you said, that race changed her life that first time. Hers was in 2000. If you remember, that was the year that the rain really came down. And she finished in 11 hours, 55 minutes. And, the fact that she finished it all changed her life. And it sounds like this planted a seed that has brought you back for what will be the 25th time this year. So maybe we can get you to tell us, I mean, in 25 years, you kind of build a big composite memory of the whole thing, right? But there are still standout moments in the race. What are some of the moments in your incredible number of stories, I'm sure, that you find yourself thinking about as you are on the course or when you're getting ready to head back out? Well,
I remember one year I broke my wrist at that first turn into the dirt. Someone fell in front of me, and my hands were just, you come down that hill in the cold. My hands were, I had no feeling in my hands. And I just grabbed my front brake and went over my handlebars and broke my wrist. And I did the rest of the 98 miles basically on one arm.
Left wrist or right wrist?
Right. I had to reach over with my left hand to shift. It was just, talk about just pain and perseverance, but I'll never forget that year. And then there was one year, I don't even know which one it was. It was a huge storm, and people were just in plastic bags and jumping in cars and you finished and your lips were purple and you were just shivering. So I remember that year. Maybe that was 2000.
I think that probably was 2000. And that was the year that really left a lot of folks with no brakes and no feeling in any of their limbs. So what kind of finish times were you getting back in the early days?
Well, like the first year, I had no idea how I was going to do. I mean, we were just there, we were like happy if we just finished. We just were overwhelmed by the whole thing. And I think I got like 9:12. I had no idea. I was just going to hope to break 12. And then the next 5 years, I got like 9:13, 9:15, 9:17, 9:11. It was year 7 before I broke 9.
Jeff, you and I have probably ridden together a bunch, is what I'm suddenly learning. Your finish times sound a lot like mine. I took longer to get to a sub 9, but I remember I chased that sub 9. I mean, it it was a rabbit out in front of me I could just never catch for 15 years. But you caught it sooner than I did. Congratulations. What about your slowest times?
Oh dear. Probably, what's interesting is these 24 years that's a long time. And I've raced as a young kid, single. I've raced as a married man. I've raced as a married man with 2 kids. And now I'm racing as a divorced guy. So it's I've just been through it all. But I think when I was married with kids was probably my worst time. Is just, you don't find the time to train. 10:30 probably my worst time.
Wow. But that's incredibly consistent over the years. So you have a 1 sub-9 and then nothing worse than 10:30. But were the difference makers in those times from your fastest to your slowest just the outside forces, family issues, professional life? Are those the difference makers for you?
Probably, yeah. Just the amount of training I got in that year.
So you brought up training, which is a great topic for the Jeff Leenhouts story. Do you actually call what you do training, or do you call it something else? And why don't you describe for folks your approach to getting ready for not only the Leadville Trail 100, but any mountain bike event you might be geeked up for?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I've never really quote unquote trained my whole life. I don't know what an interval is. I've never done a wind sprint. I don't understand, I understand tapering, but I don't really ever do that. My whole thing has just been get on the bike and ride. And I just enjoy riding. I ride all the time. But don't get me wrong. 3 months before Leadville, every day I think about Leadville, what I'm eating, or I got to get on my bike, or I got to, ride hard or something. So it's not training, but it's always in my head that Leadville's coming up and I got to be prepared.
Okay. So we're in the middle of that now, Jeff. What's going to happen, say, on your next ride or this Saturday, or what will the day look like on the bike?
My average ride is probably about 3 hours. I live about an hour from the hill, and I always ride there. I never put my bike on my rack because it's all good miles. So it's 15 miles to just get to the dirt from my house. And I've always done that. I think those miles are invaluable. And then I've got a 3,800 foot hill, 10 mile, 3,800 foot fire road, 15 miles from my house. So it's almost idyllic for my type of training.
Is that hill Mount Tam, or what is that? What hill are we talking about?
Mount Diablo.
Mount Diablo. You're in the East Bay, in the Bay Area, so I know Mount Diablo well. And that's no hill, folks. That's a beyond category climb for anybody that does the road, at least. I've not done the mountain biking there, Jeff, but I do know Mount Diablo quite well, and that's a bona fide HC climb for you folks interested in going out and riding in the East Bay area. Now, tell us about metrics. What about a power meter or heart rate? Are you monitoring this stuff?
0. I've never had a power meter. I never had a heart meter. Never had a Garmin. Not on Strava. I don't know. Is that old school? I don't like getting caught up in all those miles and numbers and calories, I guess.
Huh. So how do you know you're ready?
You know if you're fit.
Okay. Agreed. Oh, yeah, here. I totally get that. Yeah. I mean, you can obsess about that stuff and you can let it control your life. I think for the time crunched athlete, it can be quite helpful. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And for the data obsessed, yeah, they want to know. There's a certain security with that. But on the flip side, there's a perfectly good argument to be made. Lawrence Tan Dam makes it all the time that, look, ultimately you got to know. You got to know deep down. You got to be able to feel this thing too, to a certain extent. And it sounds like that's how you do it. You go to the Leadville Trail 100 start line with a feeling like, I know I'm ready.
Absolutely.
And it's something that occurred to me as Jeff is describing his common ride is he's describing he trains by riding course-like trail. I mean, that 15 miles you described, that immediately made me think of the distance between the pipeline and Twin Lakes Dam. That's 15 miles, right? And when you talk about a 3,800-foot climb, that is, of course, Columbine. Right. It's so you may not think of yourself as training specifically, but you have a sense of the distance and the type of riding that that is a part of Leadville. So I kind of came. I started where you were in terms of how I train, moved to a very specific kind of training, and I'm kind of coming back to where you are. That is, I don't necessarily train with a lot of specificity. I just really have a lot of fun on my bike and ride a lot of miles. So for folks who want to win the race, I think that there needs to be a lot of specific training. For those of us who want to have a great time and do something amazing, the Jeff Leenhouts method has a lot of value.
Yeah, and I like you said, I envision Leadville when I ride. If I have a bad section of Leadville, I'll go back that year, like the climb up to the tar climb at the end. I'll go for a ride, and then I'll find a tar. What's that? 2 or 3 mile tar section, and go. Okay, I kind of was hurting last year at Leadville when I went up that tar, and I don't want that happening again. So I would do my normal ride, and then I'd find a 3 mile section of tar and envision that's Leadville.
The climb back up to the Carter aid station. Yeah.
Correct.
Oh man.
I hate that section too. And Jeff, I had identified a spot on my regular training rides that I thought simulated that. And still, every time I went back to Leadville, that section back to Carter aid would kill me every time. I mean, I could never quite get that part down. But anyway, so 25, you're going to 25 finishes hopefully this year, 24 notched in your belt, as we said earlier. And we talked about your first bike at the Leadville Trail 100, which is, again, something that belongs in some type of Hall of Fame, some type of Leadville Hall of Fame. That is incredible. But how has your bike choice evolved over the years?
Oh, just with the times. I think, going from 26 to 29 and going from rim brakes to rotors. I've just recently gone to a small rear shock, Epic, just to take a little off, the little edge off.
So tell us about do you have favorite sections of the Leadville course, and do you have sections you dread, and why?
I love the first 20 miles. I love watching the rookies go anaerobic up St. Kevin's. I get a kick out of that. Someone trying to go by 10 people and just, possibly ruining their ride. And I feel like, I'm such a, I'm so much smarter than them. I just stay on the pace and don't burn any unnecessary calories. And and then the second climb, Sugarloaf, same thing. You see people going nuts, and it's just, let the rabbits go, is what my buddy always used to say.
A lot of wisdom there. You want to be the turtle, not the rabbit for this race. And yeah, people burn a lot of matches to earn 5 seconds on St. Kevin's, and doing difficult passes in rocky terrain up Sugarloaf. So yeah, some real wisdom that has been hard earned there. How about for yourself? What is, if there is one, a section of the course that you dread each year?
I look at every hill as a challenge. I don't really dread. I don't dread. I may be tired, but I look at power lines. It's a challenge. Or I look at the climb up the tar as a challenge. So I think if I dreaded it, that might affect my performance, but I look at it as a challenge. If the harder it is, the more I kind of get mentally strong.
Let's move to another topic of discussion on this podcast, and that's nutrition. We talk intensely about nutrition on this course, and your buddy Mark Prince told me, make sure you ask Jeff about how he fuels himself during the Leadville Trail 100 or any mountain bike race for that matter. So Fatty and I have disclosed what we like to eat on the course. It's not any real secret. But Jeff, how do you fuel yourself for what is the highest and hardest mountain bike race in the country?
Well, I'm certainly not recommending this to anyone, but again, it's worked for me for 24 years. So I'm not a big goo and gel and powder person at all. In fact, I don't think I used any goos or powders or gels. I'm pretty much real food. I stop at the dam every year and have a foot-long Subway sandwich with a bag of Fritos and a Coke.
You have a picnic.
I have a picnic. I take my helmet off. I take my shoes off. I sit down and I have lunch. And
oh my Lord, Jeff.
That's awesome. I love that.
It's just what I do. It's my ritual.
How long do you spend at Twin Lakes Dam?
I'll sit down and I'll go, it's not a race. And everyone will go, yeah, it is.
It is, in fact, a race. So
let's explore that real quick, Fatty. Jeff, is the Leadville Trail 100 a race to you or a ride or an event?
I mean, I guess you could say I ride it. I ride it fast. I ride it to get my lowest time. But am I racing against the guy in front of me, or am I racing to? I race sometimes to catch my buddies. If I see them pass me when I'm sitting there at one of the aid stations, we'll play, leapfrog. But I ride it. I guess I'd admit I probably ride it.
All right, Subway sandwich, a Coke, and a bag of Fritos at Twin Lakes outbound. But it's a longer day than that. What else are we eating? Is there a pancake stop somewhere, or going for an espresso?
I definitely have tons and tons of calories for breakfast. I have a huge breakfast before I start. And then in between start and the dam, I have some cookies and Fig Newtons and bananas, or I stop at the rest stops and eat their nuts and their chips and peanut butter jelly sandwiches. And there's plenty of food.
There for sure is plenty of food. So I admire the way that you are doing this. I could not eat the way that you eat, and everyone should make sure they find what works for them. And this clearly has worked for you 24 times. That's amazing. But I do have a question of, do you ever eat on the bike while you are, because I cannot chew while I am on the bike, because at 10,000 to 12,000 feet, I'm breathing at my absolute limit. Chewing is a non-starter for me.
It is tough. I find on the tar is the best point to do it. And up the climb up Columbine. Those are really the only places I try to eat on the bike, is on tar or up Columbine.
Wow. So you are really getting your calories at, not as you go, but in bursts. I'm thinking of you as kind of like a snake, that there's big balls of food working its way through you. It's like, well, I had a burger going up Columbine, and that's amazing.
Yeah. And it's that goes against all, what everyone says to do. And I understand.
So getting to Leadville, Fatty, you usually drive. And for people out west, driving is doable. Like even for me in Southern California, I can be in Leadville by car comfortably with, one overnight stop. A friend of mine actually did it in one push.
Ugh, man, that's a little much. But for a lot of folks, flying into Denver and then driving to Leadville is how they are going to get there. And flying means packing a bike. When you fly with your bike or you ship it, you, of course, have to pack it. and packing that bike can be a huge hassle.
Oh, yes, sir. But a good bike travel case can make a difference. And the one I have is worth considering. Part of the Shimano family is the Pro Bike line of equipment. And in that lineup is a travel case. For simplicity's sake, they simply call it the Pro Bike travel case. I love simplicity. One of the cool things about this case is its base. That's where the mountain bike mounts to the rack itself inside the case. It actually comes out of the larger overall case, making it easy to attach the frame and fork to that base. And then once you have the frame and fork securely attached to the base, you just slide that base right back into the case. This removable base, eliminates that struggle of securing the bike in the tight confines of a travel case.
Yeah, Pro Bike has recently updated this case too, adding more structure to it to protect your bike from any blows from the side. The wheels are also securely enclosed in a dedicated compartment inside the case, as opposed to in flimsy wheel bags, which are usually too small anyway for your big knobby 29ers.
Oh yeah, I've tried to squeeze, 29-inch knobbies into wheel bags. You end up deflating the tires, and you can't get them zipped up or anything. So real hassle there.
Right.
Glad they've added those compartments in this Pro Bike travel case. Rest assured, though, that the Pro Bike has created enough space for mountain bikes as well. They specifically say that on the website, that 29ers fit fine in this case. To check out the Pro Bike travel case, it's not hard to find because it's their only one. Go to probike-gear.com and then head to the accessories page. So, Fatty, is it too early to be thinking about what you will wear on race day?
I would almost say it's too late to be thinking about what you're going to wear on race day. You got to know. At least you've got to have a general idea how you're going to be dressing, which chamois you're going to have on your butt the whole day, and know what is your most comfortable jersey, what is going to have you feeling good the entire day. Someday I got to tell you about my first Leadville 100 and why I do not think wool jerseys are a good idea in Leadville. But
yeah, I love the wool jersey. But how about this? Is it too late? Is it too late now to get a custom kit from DNA Cycling?
Well, they have a 6 to 8 week lead time, so definitely cutting it close if we're not past it. I think if you do want something custom, call DNA, see if it is possible. But even if the deadline has passed for this year, you can still look and feel pro by grabbing some of DNA's apparel, which doesn't necessarily have the custom logos and design, but is still great, comfortable gear.
Yeah, it's the same great stuff you'd get from custom, just minus your logos. Like the bibs, for instance. Our Leadville kit was available with that endurance bib. If I wanted another pair of those bibs, I would just go to their online store and buy some. By the way, that's a terrific bib short, but looks like they've changed the name to I think they call it the gravel bib now.
Yeah, they can call it whatever they want. I wear them mountain biking, and I call them great. I love the 2 pockets sewn right on the hip pockets. They're great for stashing a gel, or I keep all of my empties in them. Your gloves, they expand out. You can put a lot in there without ever feeling them. And there are 2 lower back pockets, which is a great place for a tubeless tire plug. Or and this is what I do, I put my phone in there when I am training, because both Lisa and I have accidentally ejected our rather smallish phones. We have the iPhone 12 minis from jersey pockets because they are so small, they will fly out of jersey pockets, especially in a fall. Inside the back jersey, or in the back pocket that is held there with elastic with DNA, they just don't fall out no matter what.
So while the custom window might be closed or closing, you can still look and feel good in a DNA Cycling kit. They have jerseys and bibs in great colors and with nice highlights, and you can find them all at dnacycling.com.
Our guest for this episode is Jeff Leenhouts. He is a lot like you and me, minus the 24 Leadville finishes and the submarine sandwich at Twin Lakes. That said, Jeff has some great advice for any Leadville dreamer.
Now, as the years have gone on, people have found out about you, obviously, and have sought out your advice. You've mentored more than your fair share of other people who have entered the Leadville Trail 100. What do What do you try to tell the newbie or anybody who's interested in this race about approaching it, doing it, getting it done? What's your mentorship? What's your advice like?
It's ride a lot, before the race, just ride a lot. I love doing double centuries on a road bike. I think that's something great for endurance. Get 2 or 3 of those in before Leadville. Do a lot of climbing. The race itself, I just try to teach them just to have fun. Don't get all stressed out. Enjoy the ride. Thank the volunteers while you're riding. Be careful out there. Just kind of common words of wisdom, I guess. I don't know. Nothing technical. The one thing I say is don't let what you can control ruin your race. You can control what you drink and you can control what you eat. Those shouldn't be the reason why you don't finish.
And I love your advice on thanking the volunteers. Honestly, just enjoying the day. That is one thing that I also have shared with a lot of people is as you are on the course, make sure you take the time to remember that this is the day that you have thought about for 364 days, or in this case, I guess 720 days since we missed last year, that this is a real special day. Soak it in. Don't make the whole day about staring at your GPS and seeing if you are hitting your numbers. This is an amazing event. So when you finish Leadville, many times, including this year, are not done racing. Tell us what comes next.
Well, I go and do the Breck Epic the next day. It's a 6-day stage race. I'm a little tired the first day, but the fitness I gain in Leadville, it kicks in tremendously.
Like you, I love the Breck Epic, and the fact that it seems to always either follow Leadville or that or Leadville follows it. I think you've done it both ways. Which way's harder?
Whatever comes first is harder. If I do Breck first, Leadville is a breeze. It's just a walk in the park because I'm so acclimated and I've been racing harder. Breck is a faster race, so you're racing it. So when Leadville's after Breck, it makes Leadville so much fun and easy. And when Breck is after Leadville, like I said, the first day you kind of at the starting line, you're still in a fog from Leadville, and you're lined up against these guys that are just jonesing to go fast, and you're like, oh God, it's brutal, but that you get over it after day 2 or 3. I'm there. I'm in Colorado. I don't live in Colorado. The 2 best races in the world are right next to each other. Why not just do them both? That's how I feel.
I 100% agree. And you know what and Hadi, you can attest to this. What I am really loving about this conversation is Jeff and I could not be more different in almost every way in terms of how we train and how we eat. But the fact is, both of us love both of these races for almost exactly the same reason. I was just thinking, as you were saying, whichever race is first is the harder of the 2. I was thinking, that's exactly the opposite of my experience. Whichever one is second for me. I remember doing Leadville after Breck and just, really struggling to get through the thing. And I remember doing Breck after Leadville and the first day thinking, well, I'm about to DNF for the first time in my life. And finishing it all was a huge success for me. All of these things, the fact that you and I are really different in a lot of ways, I think underscores how awesome both of these races are. And that it brings folks who, come from different perspectives and have different experiences. I have a lot to talk about. It's honestly, that is one of the things I love best about these big killer races in Colorado.
The mindsets are different. Leadville's really, high altitude fitness. and Breck is a trail.
And I understand, Jeff, you do, once you get to Breck, if it follows Leadville, that first day is a little rough, but you find yourself moving up the rankings there as the week goes on and have a pretty nice record there.
Absolutely. I've podiumed many days, and I've podiumed overall, age group, obviously. I love that race.
And then in addition to Breck, you have other interests on the bike, including long distance and bike packing. Talk to us about bike packing. Bike packing is something that has at least captured my imagination. I have not done anything yet about it, but you have spent a good amount of hours and days out on the trail in a tent. What do you like there? What do you do there?
Oh, bike packing is the culmination of everything we do. I mean, I was a mountaineer. I was a backpacker, and now I'm a biker, and it's almost the culmination of all your skills into one sport. And you get to places you never would imagine being at. I mean, your jaw-dropping sunrises, and your incredible sunsets, and then there's the being above tree line, and lightning storm hits, and I have, just the experiences I have bike packing are just beyond a lot of the races I do. And the crazy thing about me is it's almost like the closer I'm to death, the more alive I feel. It's kind of warped, but when you're hiding under a bush above tree line and you have no nutrition in your body, and I feel alive right now. It's crazy, but it's a great feeling. And I've bike packed all over the place, and it's a fun sport.
Yeah, well, take us to an event. What are some of the events you adore most for bike packing?
Well, I haven't done anything. I haven't done the Tour Divide yet because I just don't have the time to take a whole month off from my life. But most are 300, 400, 500 mile races, and so 3 or 4 or 5 days. And I've bike packed, and I did a race from the Honduras border to the Guatemalan border in Costa Rica, and that's an experience. You're biking in the dark in the jungle with animals making noises around you, and you're sunburned. You've got thousands of bites on your body. So that was an experience. But those are, I highly recommend it. It's a great sport.
And it's, what I've heard about bikepacking is what hangs up a lot of folks, and me to a certain extent too, is, I need all this gear to do it. I got to have, big bags, special bags, enough water. How am I going to go to the bathroom out there? But tell us clear our minds for us real quick, Jeff, on what exactly is needed to go out and give bikepacking a go.
You need a pad, a sleeping bag, and a water filter, and a GPS, and that's about it. It's just, I look at it as it's a long ride, and when you're tired, you just kind of pull off the trail and go in your sleeping bag and do it again the next day. So the equipment shouldn't, it's not overwhelming at all. It's pretty straightforward. And nowadays you can get it at REI. When I was starting it, you had to order it from Alaska and these small custom builders. And now you can get it just at your local store.
So here's a question for you. You have 24 buckles as well as medals from Leadville. Where are they? Are they hanging out? Or have you made a coffee table out of all of them? I mean, what do you do with 24 buckles?
They're sitting in the garage in a box, along with 24 sweatshirts. I don't do it for that. I mean, I do it because I love people, and I generally come with a caravan, about 30 people. I rent a cabin and invite about 30 other racers, and I love the camaraderie. I love the Leadville family. I love Ken and Marilee. But I love just hanging out with everyone. And and that's what kind of drives me during the race, is knowing that I have all my friends on the race with me. And I wouldn't call myself an alpha dog, but I'm kind of a leader. And I just love having a big group and having big dinners after a big race. And that's what I live for.
Okay. So here's one thing where you and I are exactly the same on. I love that. It's I don't know where most of my buckles are either. The 2,000 mile buckle, I do know where that one is, but there just aren't that many of those. So you got to keep track of that. But it really is about the people and the experience. The hardware is nice. It's something to kind of keep you going at certain moments. But yeah, absolutely. Leadville has always been about the place and the people and the experience. That said, you got number 25 coming up if you do finish, and I'm going to make a prediction, Fatty. Jeff will finish number 25. That's a nice round number, good number. 25 sounds good. So is there a celebration, something planned for number 25, Jeff?
I don't think so. Maybe 30. Maybe I'll celebrate 30. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, after all, you got to go to, as soon as you finish the race, you got to go from the starting line to your truck or however you get around and get yourself over to Breckenridge. You have 12 hours till you race again.
I tell you, I'm in no hurry. I mean, I live to watch from like 11:30 to 12. I sit at that finish line and I see those people come across, the people that have got hit by cars and broke their backs or have cancer or this is their bucket list thing. I see the joy and I see the families, and I love watching the last half an hour. So I won't leave until that 12-hour gun goes off. That is so emotionally, recharging for me to see these people. They're the ones suffering. They're the ones that I'm rooting for.
100%. Yeah. The intensity, the drama, the achievement that you see for the folks who have put in a longer day than twice as long of a day as the guy who won the race, right? You can't say someone's worked twice as hard, but they have worked really hard. And to see the look, the pain and the joy, oh man, I agree. It is worth sticking around after you finish the race to cheer on the others.
Jeff, it sounds like you find the Leadville Trail 100 the most emotionally rewarding race of all of them that you do. Is it the hardest, or is there something harder out there that you have done?
Yeah, I mean, it's by far the most emotional and the most rewarding race. I'll never miss it. But is it the hardest? Probably not. I mean, bike packing is harder. You're out there a lot longer for consecutive days. It's hard. Leadville is hard, no doubt about it. And it's going to challenge you and you're going to dig deep, as Ken would say. But I will tell you a story about a race I did. It's called White Mountain in a Day, and it's in Bishop, California. And you start in Bishop at 4,000 feet, and you go to the top of White Mountain, which is about 14,250. And I've got a little conspiracy that I believe in, is that White Mountain is higher than Mount Whitney, but they won't release that because then you'd get everyone that would want to go up it. It's a very delicate environment up there. They have a tree that's the oldest living creature in the world. They're like 3,000 years old. And I think if just, tons and tons of people went up there, it might damage them. But it was a race, and unfortunately, one of the racers died because the cars can only get so high up the hill, and he couldn't get help. But I do it every year, just before Leadville, on my way to Colorado, and it's a ball buster. Yes, you're biking to 14,500 feet. it gets me acclimated. It shocks my system so that when I get to Leadville, I go, yeah, I remember this now. I know how to deal with this. Whereas if you go do Leadville without doing anything like that, you kind of don't know how to deal with it. So it's good to kind of experience that before Leadville every year. I found it invaluable.
Yeah, I think that tree's the bristlecone pine that you're talking about. Yeah. And that is fatty for folks here in Southern California too. There is some knowledge of that White Mountain climb around these parts. You'll hear people talk about it once in a while as being just a bugger of a ride, like sturdy, very, very difficult up there too. So hats off to you, Jeff, for doing that not only once, but every time you go to Colorado. Pretty cool. A big part of our sport that's growing right now, and I guess a little surprised I haven't heard you mention it so far, that is gravel. Everyone seems to think they want to do gravel now, and Unbound Gravel has claimed itself as being the Super Bowl of gravel races, 200 miles. Sounds like something right in your wheelhouse. So does gravel riding. But is this part of your life yet? Have you become a graveler?
I've done gravel races on my mountain bike, but I don't own a gravel bike.
And that's why do you? What's been the hesitation there?
I guess I see it as more kind of a roadie going to dirt, kind of mentality than a trail rider going to fire roads. But it's not anything. I plan on. It's just, or I'm against. I just haven't gotten into that realm yet.
Jeff, it is such a pleasure to talk with someone who does this race just because he loves this race, and clearly your love of riding is over the top, and it's something that has lasted for a quarter of a century. Congratulations and good luck, and look forward to seeing you on the starting line.
After our formal interview there, Fatty, Jeff and I chatted it up about Mount Diablo and living east of San Francisco in Contra Costa County. And I asked if he knew my hometown, and he did. And he said his kids go to school over there, my hometown. Turns out his kids actually go to my high school where I graduated from. Talk about 6 degrees of separation.
Oh, I love the small world interactions that we're always discovering. And if you have something like that with Jeff, you're going to find out, because he's one of those guys who you walk right up to and you've never met him, never talked with him before. And he doesn't necessarily highly promote all that he's done on the bike, but man, there is a lot there. Just a really great guy to talk with. Hadi, if it's been a while since your tubeless tire setup has been freshened up, let's get it done before we get too close to race day. Fresh sealant and a check on that rim tape is a good call. And it could be the difference between a great day and a real big problem from taking you down on race day. And
I've actually suffered this blow before. Going up Columbine, I had a slow leak and later discovered once I got home that my rim tape had started failing as soon as I was going up Columbine. So, yeah. That rim tape in particular can reach up and bite you right in the middle of an important race, as I just said. Now, I know switching out tubeless rim tape can be kind of a pain. You got to pull and stretch and get it on just right. So we're going to tell you to grab some Envy rim tape. That's right, Envy. They make great carbon wheels, and they have great tubeless tape to match. Yeah, you know that your rim tape is going to go well with your wheels if they both came from Envy. In fact, match is a really key word that you mentioned there, Hadi. When you go to the Envy website and find their tubeless tape, scroll down that page and check out the really nice chart that Envy has laid out. It'll match the width of tape with the wheels that you have. So like for me, I have the M525 wheels. Therefore, I would get the 29.5 inch or 29.5 millimeter rim tape. It's pretty amazing. Envy has 7 different widths of tape for its various carbon tubeless wheels. And I have used this stuff. It goes on way easier than any other tape I've used. And if you're uncertain about how to apply it, Envy has great installation instructions. Yeah, and while you're at it, maybe grab some fresh valve stems too, just in case those that you have right now have seen better days. I definitely like to replace those before race day. Make it easy to unscrew them if you need to.
put in a little extra air or CO2. Check out Envy's tubeless accessories at Envy. That is ENVE.com. Let's go ahead and wrap this episode. Big thanks to the modest man of mountain biking, Jeff Leenhouts.
Yes, Jeff, I hope at some point you will sit back and celebrate all that you have done. Bask in your glory, Jeff. Really, it's okay. Big thanks to our listeners who have joined us on social media. Fatty's on Twitter at Fat Cyclist, and I am on Instagram at Michael Houghton. Of course, we are both on the Facebook Leadville 100 Mountain Bike Participants page.
And we are also both on our Slack workspace. You'll find a link to it over at Leadville100podcast.com.
If you like this show, go to wherever you listen and give us a 5-star rating and write a review. Seems like Apple Podcasts is now behaving properly, so you can rate us and review us over there. But for a complete list of how you can find this show, it's pod.link/Leadville.
Good luck in your training. Thanks for listening, and we are going to see you next month at the 2021 starting line.
Let's see who's coming next. Up the chute they come, about to approach that red carpet. 2 riders, 3 riders, in fact. Natalie Cybulski, Mario Berta, Abram Soto, Kevin and Drew